everybody, it's John, and today we're here with Marc Victor with Attorneys for Freedom. And I got, again, this video that has just really blown up on the main channel of this guy getting attacked by a whole mob. A lot of you have asked a question about, if I'm a third party and I see this happening, can I step in with deadly force? So I brought us one of the premier attorneys in America to talk about it. So once again, Marc, I'm always grateful that you come on and you give us your time. And I want all you to recognize, I mean, this guy bills like $600, $700 an hour for his time.
Unless they're members of the Attorneys on Retainer program.
Okay, all right. But we get a crazy amount of value out of this. So I just want to say, from my perspective, Marc, thank you so much.
Well, I love that you give me the opportunity to really comment on these, because I think that, it's funny, I was just talking to some officials in the government. When I wanted to take them out to lunch, because I said, look, we're just trying to get good information out to people,
right, so
we can prevent the situation where good people get into big trouble just because they make a bad judgment about the law. Where is it clear? This video here that we just saw, man, what a disgusting video. I mean, there are all kinds of moral questions to talk about here.
Yeah, but, I mean, obviously, the attackers are, just morally bankrupt.
Disgusting.
And on every level, I mean, I condemned that in the narration, and I think everybody in the comments did as well. However, some people had this discussion about, okay, wait a minute, if I come by and I see this, and this morally shocks the conscience, this is not just a mugging going on. This is so terribly shocking, but I have a gun on me, can I use it?
Yeah.
And what do you think, defense attorney?
Well, I think it's important first to distinguish moral issues from legal issues, right? Morally, this is a complete outrage, and so we're all upset. People of good morality are upset when they watch this video. Mm-hmm. But it comes back to legal questions, right? So we got to always start with sort of the fundamental, basic legal questions. I would start with the idea that whatever you do has got to be reasonable.
Yes.
And whatever you do has got to be the minimal amount of force that's reasonably necessary to repel the attack, in this case against the third party. Also, there's the concept that you better be right? As we've talked about this in other videos. If you stumble upon this, this one's actually pretty easy to figure out, I think, just because you got a mob scene. These people certainly don't look like undercover police officers trying to make an arrest. Yeah, so I think it's reasonably easy to figure out what's going on here. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not quite so easy, but in a lot of states, you better be right. Because remember, you can only defend a third party to the extent the third party could defend him or herself. So beginning with that in mind, I think if you just roll up on this, pull out your firearm and start shooting people dead, I think you're in trouble.
Or at the very least, at great risk.
I think you're going to be prosecuted, and I think you're going to be convicted if you do that. Because people here, at least initially, are using ordinary physical force. Now remember, this event covers a period of time, right? So if you start from the very beginning and you pull out a firearm and you start shooting somebody, absolutely you're going to be prosecuted and you're going to be convicted. At the end of the incident, the guy's down on the ground and we don't know how injured he is, it's starting to look much more serious, and you might be at risk of a serious physical injury. This guy could have suffered really major, maybe even life-ending injuries here, depending on some of these kicks to the head, those kinds of things. But I think always the safer thing to do is you begin with the most minimal amount of force. If I was going to, if I had a firearm and I rolled up on this incident, assuming I wanted to get involved, right?
That's a big assumption.
Because you bring on risk on yourself, right? These guys themselves could have guns and probably wouldn't have any problem taking them out and shooting you if you stopped to defend this guy. So whether you want to do that, that's also a moral question. You're not under any legal obligation to defend this guy. The safest thing to do, obviously, dial 911, call the police, get them there. But if you want to intervene, well, I think the way you intervene is you start with the least amount of force necessary. Hey guys, I got a gun, get out of here, leave them alone. You don't even display the gun, don't put your hand on the gun, I got a gun. You got plenty of time as long as you got some distance,
right? Little space, yeah.
Right. Then I think if that didn't work, I would probably maybe show the gun, put my hand on the gun, leave the guy alone, and I'm not looking for any trouble here, that kind of thing.
Right.
I think so before I actually discharged around, I would very slowly creep up. Now, circumstances can change quickly, right? You may show, hey, I got a gun. You might get charged upon by a bunch of these guys, and then different story. You got to defend yourself. But I think it's always important to realize that you got to start with the most minimal amount of force necessary. So I absolutely, under no circumstances, would ever recommend on this sort of situation here, you roll up, you pull out your firearm, and you start shooting people. I think if you do that, you're likely to be prosecuted. But I think you can build up to that. I think this is a situation where if you show up and say, I got a gun, leave this guy alone, and they still kick him, and then you pull out the gun, maybe hold it up, hold it down. I wouldn't point it at anybody. Arizona has this defensive display of a firearm statute. Not all states have that. And before we had that statute, you might have been in a problem here. You're at risk of being prosecuted because the argument is you are using or threatening deadly physical force in response to ordinary physical force. But, as I say, these are gray areas, right? And you always want to present yourself as the responsible, law-abiding person and say, look, I just wanted to defend this guy, I'm being reasonable. If you present yourself as a yahoo, as I like to say, a guy who's excited about...
I've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting for this moment to pull out that gun and stick it in someone's face, I'm going to blow your head off, whatever, and then you say a whole bunch of other things, you're likely to get yourself prosecuted. So always minimal amount of force that is necessary to repel the attack. And you build up slowly, and whatever you got to do, remember that whatever you do will be judged by a reasonableness standard by a group of people who are going to be randomly selected from the community, some of which you will be upset that you have a gun at all. Those are just the facts of life.
And if it goes all the way to the jury, what jury do you get? Well, you get 12 reasonable people in your area who may not see things like you do.
When you may not think they're all reasonable.
Right. To your standard, they may not be.
You get 12 or 8, depending on the charges, randomly selected people from the community. Some of they are going to have varying opinions about the Second Amendment and guns and things of that nature. And so some of them will say you should have just called the police and moved on. So, anytime you step up, and this is unfortunate, when you step up in a situation like this, you're taking on some risk. You're taking on legal risk, and you're taking on physical risk.
Physical risk.
These guys probably wouldn't have any qualms with attacking another person, would be my guess.
So this is what I'm hearing, Mark. You tell me if I've heard it right. First of all, I think he himself, right? So the guy punches him in the face. Now you draw your gun there, you're in big legal trouble. When he's got 3 dudes holding him down and just beating him to death, probably in an easier situation. When I'm looking at this from a third party, outside of it perspective, I have more time because I have more space, so that I should approach this more cautiously. Right,
and all these things are going to be looked at. If you roll up on the situation, how much space is there between you and the sort of this event? Are there 50 yards between you? That there's plenty of time to yell and say, leave them alone, or do this or that. If you find yourself in the middle of the thing, there may not be as much time. So all of these factors are going to be, Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
You're going to act, and this is how these things come down. You're making split-second decisions that are going to be, stop the tape 1 second at a time, and a prosecutor's going to say, well, now you could have done this, and this. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do this? And you're going to have to justify what you did and when you did it and why you did it.
And I think what I hear from you all the time, and it's really cemented my own understanding of this, is to be very, very, very hesitant to enter a third-party encounter because of the physical risk, but also because of the legal risk. If I'm wrong, or if I make a bad decision, which can happen, right? I mean, I'm well-trained, but I can make a bad decision, and if I make a bad decision, I'm accountable to that bad decision before the man.
We're just talking about legal issues here.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, I come up on that situation, I'm getting involved. I don't care.
So,
that's a moral question. I'm going to take I am not going to stand by and watch that happen. I don't care.
But I think that there's wisdom in saying, I'm going to get involved, but I'm going to get involved at the minimum level I can. Hey, I got the cops on the phone. Get out of here. The cops are on their way, and hopefully that scampers them off. And, and if they start posturing up, back off, guys. I got a gun. Get away from me. I don't want to fight with you.
I think you got the nail on the head. First thing I would do is call 911. Then I would try to say, hey, cops on the way, get out of here. Probably those guys run away. You roll up on this scene, sending rounds downrange, expect to be prosecuted.
Guys, be careful. Mark, thank you so much for the info.
Thanks for having me.